What do you bang on the door when you like not mercy but like
Sanctuary.
sanctuary? I couldn't remember the word sanctuary in my mind. I was like, what's the help me word? Hello, listener, and welcome back to another episode of Library Hours. I'm Brice. As we turn to winter, the nights are longer and colder, and the amount of bandwidth we have to deal with all the bullshit life throws at us, it feels diminished, doesn't it? Trying to make sure I get as much rest as I can, and I'm also trying to make sure I actively remind myself of things to be grateful for. One of the things is this podcast, it's taught me a lot over the last year, including but especially pertaining to my boundaries and limitations. To everyone who's kept up with the show, I cannot express what it means to me. I hope the future brings me enough energy to do all the things I want to for you. One thing I'm grateful for that I'll reiterate as often as possible is I am so grateful to everybody who has sent money for us to donate to the Mutual Aid Solidarity and Snacks. They provide much needed goods and supplies to the people living on Skid Row here in Los Angeles, and every little bit helps. If you want to get in touch with them directly, you can find them at Solidarity and Snacks, all one word, on Instagram. For today's episode, we're talking to my friend Ari. They're one of the smartest, most compassionate, and fun people in my life. I met them at a support group for other non-binary people. That group brings me a sense of solidarity and repose I can't find anywhere else. Ari works in education in the library, and I was stoked to talk to somebody about what that environment's like. Ari's passion for their students is dwarfed maybe only by their passion for fun vampire movies. So listen in and then tell us if we missed what you think is the best vampire film. Okie dokie, here's Ari. Recording in 3, 2, 1. No, actually, if it helps you at all, what do you do in the beginning of a podcast? Because have you ever listened to one of those podcasts where you can tell that guest had to just sit there in the room or wherever for like 5 minutes straight waiting for the person to get through their opening spiel? Like they're like, welcome to my podcast. Here's an anecdote about how my grandma got in a fight with my dog that takes 10 minutes. And then I got to go to the promo code because I got to be a mattress salesman for 5 minutes. And you can tell the guest there is like, who maybe is like a PhD in astro everything.
I don't think I've listened to a podcast like that.
How have you been?
I guess good. Well, yesterday was a little weird because I got my second vaccine dose.
Were you still nervous to like go get the poke, or was it the social aspect, or what was going on?
Well, more the social aspect too, because the first time I went, there was a lot of people ahead of me waiting, and I don't know, they're just giving me weird looks.
You were like, I don't like the vibe here. This club, let's get out of here. They don't give you. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I had to go back to. Like no gory details or anything, but I went back to like a mental hospital where they administered it. So I had to go back, and it was like when you graduate high school, but like a weird, more awkward version. Like,
oh no!
Hi everybody, I'm still sane, so I'm gonna be just getting the poke and getting out of here. But the shot itself is just so strange. You have to sit there afterwards because they have to make sure you're not gonna like fall over or whatever.
Yes, I wasn't expecting that either. Which makes sense, like when you donate blood. But yeah, I had to be around those people for an extra 15 minutes. And they also like chose to sit like right next to each other in the chairs.
Ooh, no.
But do you know why we're here? So I was just like off to the corner, and I think that also was why I was getting those weird looks like, what's that person doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to be safe. And also you're all giving me weird vibes, so I don't want to be near you anyways.
No, of course. And you don't want to be judgmental because you're like, we're all in this together. You're glad that they're there getting the shot. Some yahoos are not doing that. And maybe by the time this airs, because I don't know the exact order of air date, but hopefully by this time, most people won't even need this sort of like primer on what the getting the shot is like. All of our nerves aside, very highly recommend that you go do it. It's good for you and the people around you, in my opinion, just in my opinion.
Yes.
What I had you on was probably not for us to be doing PSAs for an inoculation all night. Is inoculation and vaccination the same thing? I don't know. I have a high school diploma and technically I have a degree, but it's in acting. So I have a high school diploma.
That's a good question. I don't know.
You are actually one of my friends. I will go into gory details, but I say gory details like it's a bad, I don't know why I say that just as shorthand for like, I'm not going to get into, I'm not going to elaborate further than I think is necessary, but I keep in my life, in my like just my casual life, I'll be like, oh yeah, I ate a salad, no gory details. And then just but it was good. And then they're like, what? Wait, did you kill a man in order to get the salad? What's happening?
I just said I won't go into it.
That's so great for the stuff we're going to talk about later, but I won't get into the gory details. We met in a non-binary support group. Mostly, it's just a hangout to get away from cisgender people.
Yeah, I'm non-binary, transmasc, cutie. I use they, them pronouns. I'm 25. Still don't know what that means entirely. And I work as a library assistant for an elementary school in the San Bernardino school district.
And you were telling me a little bit of the differentiation between that and like somebody who's considered like just a regular librarian, right?
Yes. So I'm a classified employee for the district.
How is that testing? Like, what do you cover when you're taking this sort of exam? Because I think that sounds very interesting.
Oh gosh, it's been a while. I do remember being scared about the test though, because I heard there was math.
Oh yeah,
but it was.
I would be right there with you. I'd be like, oh no, oh gosh. I took a class called senior math in high school because they couldn't put me in regular math.
I was nervous, and I kept telling. I was pushed, encouraged by a family friend, longtime family friend, to pursue this library assistant position because she's been substitute with the district for decades. So I did it. I wasn't doing anything else. I didn't know what to do after I graduated with honors from.
Were you
from
somebody
college,
that
so.
like grew up admiring librarians? Were you like with one of the library kids who was just in there on the like either that or like taking up the computer lab portion of it or whatever, or the manga section? That was I'm just describing myself now. I was like, who else is in a library besides Reed?
No, you're absolutely right though. I was that kid. If it wasn't the librarian that I had a connection with, it was the space itself.
Yeah.
Just being in a library was very calming and well, quiet of course, but I mean like as soon as you entered there, I could feel like just a sense of calm.
Just because it's kind of like the secular is a weird thing because it's still framing Christianity as like the centering of it. It's when I want to do the opposite, but it's like the secular version of church where you go and it's like, all right, everybody, we're all gonna be cool with each other. Everybody, we got no problems. What do you bang on the door? When you like not mercy, but like
sanctuary.
Sanctuary. I couldn't remember the word sanctuary in my mind. I was like, what's the help me word? See, that's why you're the librarian and I'm not. You know the words because you open up all those books. Were you as obsessed with Matilda when you were growing up as I was? Just like the whole like a movie about a library fangirl.
I really love that movie, and I mean the way they framed this little girl having powers, mental powers, right? I mean, of course, it's sad that she, I guess, could only like access those powers after living through this trauma that was her childhood and just this horrible family who didn't love her. But it was great that, I don't know, just like, hey, there's a kid I can look up to. She loves reading books, and I mean, I found the same thing with like Belle, the Disney character. Like
when you think about the setup of that movie and how friendly everyone's misogyny is, it's like, you're not a full human, and the fact that you think you do, we probably should lock you up.
But she's still attractive, so she can stay.
Right. No, as long as we can get her set up with the town. I don't even want to say what he is. Oh, God, Gaston is a terrifying creature. And also, that's probably why I was so attracted to him. Like, I had like that awe, like that sort of like, I was like, whatever the beast turns into at the end, he's all nice and good. He's a cute little twink. That's fine. Gaston's like toxicity. I even kind of like what was his little sidekick's name? Not Lumiere, that's the kid. It was another French name. I know that takes place in France.
LeFou.
Thank you. Okay, it was another L word. I got that close. Were those like two early influences that you're like, oh yeah, reading is actually something that the protagonist seems to be attracted to. Maybe I'll keep looking into that reading thing.
I definitely also looked up to the librarian character in The Mummy. It's the late 90s adventure thriller. with Rachel Weisz and Brendan Fraser.
In like it was his biggest shot at an action leading role. Most of the times he was doing films, he would get to be like a sex object, but he would also kind of be like a comic relief thing. It was a very weird thing where they didn't quite know, like Encino Man, George of the Jungle. He was as conventionally good looking as any other star at the time, but it was always a little bit more on like the Warner Brothers side of things. It was very cartoony.
I also did have like a bit of a obsession with George of the Jungle. I don't know, and just remembering that movie nowadays feels like a fever dream.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it in a while, but
I'm sure it's aged terribly. I'm sure there are many reasons that we'll have to cancel him and all the stars and ourselves for liking it, and that's fine. But going back to Rachel Weisz, I'm sure you imprinted like a duckling on her. What about her character? Like, were you endeared by?
Well, I've noticed growing up that I've always been drawn to spooky things. So there's that. And I don't know. I think I don't know. I don't remember which came first, my love for this film or my interest in Egyptology, because I did go through that phase as a kid.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so I don't know. At this point, they're just intertwined with one another.
What about what was your gateway into to being an Egyptophile? Is that what you call it, like a Russophile or an Anglophile, Egyptophile, Egyptian file? The Egypt files. I'm getting farther away probably, but
it's okay. I just this is great because I feel like there's another tangent on our many tangents.
No, I'll index back. The autism lets me do that.
I just I've never I've never had a lot of conversations with fellow ADHD minds, and
it's so true.
Or just
I
apologize. No. I'm complimenting you. And it's like something I noticed. I was listening to the ADHD Good Life. Sandra, she went on another great podcast that I recommend.
Please do plug. Yeah, I love getting these resources out, because any sort of neurodivergency is just hell on earth some days. And so like, even and not to say that like there aren't other things about being autistic that I think are amazing and wonderful, but it is, at the end of the day, it's a thing that causes actual disability. So what about the what would you say her name was again?
Sandra,
yeah. And what about the podcast? Were you saying that you liked about it?
Well, she went on Instagram Live the other day. She was actually talking about what it means to have ADHD co-occur with another disorder. And in this case, it was autism, because she's also autistic herself. And then she was giving us an example of a man she was helping coach. But he didn't realize it, that the system was just failing him. And he's like, hey, I have this problem, I know I have ADHD, but nothing's working and I need help. And
yes. And
that part was very interesting. Yeah.
That part when you're like not quite in a system for yourself, your routine, your whatever you're doing that's helping just alleviate some of the symptoms. It's one of the most like despondent times of my life. So my heart goes out to him and to anyone else who's feeling that way. And what happened? Unfortunately, I didn't get to finish her anecdote because cliffhanger. So we all have to listen now.
I had to finish work and I needed to use my phone. But something I noticed as she was speaking, because I've never heard her speak outside of the podcast format that is very edited and well organized.
Oh yes, when written. she got more candid. Yes. Yeah. Oh, cool.
So my point is, as she was speaking, she kept interrupting herself, and I could see the hyphens cutting into her sentences, and it was just this amazing experience where and then I had this thought later that I can hear how you're thinking.
Oh, you're doing the PEMDAS. You're doing the language PEMDAS, right?
I can think the same way. And it was just incredible to me, because I'm like, yes, I can follow you exactly, because that is also how I think and communicate with myself. And yeah, it was just, it was like, wow, I wish I had been around more people like me, hearing us all talk with one another because then I'd
Oh,
probably
yes.
be more uh unafraid to I guess acknowledge that I have ADHD, because when I first realized it, I'm like, maybe this isn't a good thing. So I just like pretended I didn't read that part in the biology book in
The
high school.
stigma against it is so intense that when you first even like can think about it to yourself to be like, oh, should I talk to a doctor? Your first instinct is like, oh, wait, I shouldn't tell anybody about this because I see how people who are diagnosed that way get treated, or especially the way that people go around saying like, oh, you just think this makes you so special. Like either way of that, like that way, the word special gets used a lot, and like, and not to disparage anybody who like even struggles even more, or even wants to be like, oh, I am special because of all of these things. But it's a lot to take in, is what I'll say.
Yes.
But I was wondering because. Or even if it's just like the habit you can pick up to be like, oh, I can track that that's how you speak. Because I really love that you were like, oh, yeah, Reed's not talking nonsense or being annoying and is not going to get back to the Mummy. I remember the Mummy. We'll go back to the Mummy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great 90s film. There is a bit of xenophobia, though. One of the initial villains is this heavily coded Arab man who
Oh, for
has
sure.
all of the features, right? I guess
Yeah, I'll make
very
there's a content
stereotypical.
warning that we're talking about films that are problematic in their history.
It's a very Western take on this ancient Egyptian culture as well. So
Yeah, and
I know
almost
there's a lot of inaccuracies, a
it
lot of.
feels like I do remember when I would watch it that it felt like the filmmakers were trying to harken back to like early Hollywood depictions of action adventure,
Oh,
the
definitely.
same way that Spielberg that he was trying to recapture that sort of magic from his youth. And of course, because they're boomers and older, they're getting a lot of it racist and wrong because they're like, oh, my guys who probably were not taking any of those notes. But I did. Was it that Wise didn't feel as much of like a helpless heroine sort of like trope that attracted you? Because that's what I remember from her, is that she just put up with a lot less crap than I remember, like the women characters would get and say like Indiana Jones, or especially older like actual classic Hollywood films. What about you?
The very opening scene, the introductory scene that we get for her character, Evie, is she's clumsy. She's trying to reshelve a book, which the line for that scene, I actually.
Don't worry, we're not spoiling the movie, but we are probably spoiling like one of the greatest movie montages. Like this composition is probably one of those things that had to be a one take. Please go before I start giggling too much.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I quoted this line within the first week or so of me starting work as a librarian.
Oh my gosh, great, because I was about to re-index us back to books and to be a librarian. You are so smart. You're PEMDOSing ahead of me. Go ahead.
I was reshelving books and I found this book that was supposed to be in the fiction section. So it was a chapter book that obviously didn't go in that place that I was at. And the author's last name started with the T. And so, of course, I had to say, but Twithmosis, what are you doing here? T. And of course, that's the line that sets off Evie's trying to reshelve the book and the shelf directly behind her, but she's on the top of this very tall ladder. And
perilously, you would say.
yes. Yes. And she instead falls forward and knocks all of the shelves down in a fantastic domino effect. And
there are like
all she can say at the end is oops.
Yeah, she says oops. Well, she's done like untold like hundreds of thousands of dollars of, because we're talking like old-timey giant, like one of those giant cathedral style libraries that you're like, if I sit on something and my sweat stains it, do I owe somebody $100? What's going on? Like one of those beautiful sort of, if I remember correctly. Oh my gosh. So yeah, you were so you said that to your colleagues around the library and someone went shh.
Well, no, the great thing about this job is that I get to be alone for a lot of the time, which I initially was scared about because I thought, oh no, like how am I going to like regulate myself with the duties that I have to accomplish each day? But it turns out that I get so much stimulation with the classes coming in every half hour or so. I'm like, no, I need to be able to be alone
No,
in
yeah,
between.
that wave of like child chaos energy that like is like a Lovecraft creature that just suddenly bursts in. It's like we have arrived. Oh, okay. So this is the most people are like, Reed, why this is the tea I like, because I'm like, we have to get people talking about like these sort of trade jobs and really for people who especially are like, oh, I am someone who's introverted, but I got to make a living. Where the heck do I go? This is awesome. So if you're somebody who likes to have downtime, but knows you're also going to get that stimulation that's so important for your every, little human that needs that other connection to other people. So would you say that like, is it like 50% prep time and then 50% game time with the little demons coming in and out, or I'll stop calling them demons. These children, why am I judging them? I haven't met
They
them.
are the future, Reed.
They're gonna listen. They're gonna listen to this. They're gonna cancel me. I want to say, children. First of all, I am afraid of you. So don't worry about it. Second of all, healthy respect. Nothing but respect to the future of America. You're smarter than me, PEMDAS. Yes.
Wonderful.
Do you feel that you that's where one of your like superpowers, like the positive things about being neurodivergent, do you think that it makes you easier to pick up on the kids in your own groups that might be having those sort of things going on? Because I imagine it would be very relieving, and maybe the people who did help me as a kid were also on the spectrum and I was too spectrumy to notice.
Oh, that's a thought, isn't it? I mean, I'd like to think so. I just a small tangent. I took a youth mental health first aid training course last winter, and I learned there that we're not supposed to diagnose the students.
Of course not. No, and that's dangerous.
I will just say that as a reminder to myself as well.
Armchair diagnosis is where you, from your little seat that, again, you did not go to the medical school, you try to reach through somebody's brain and just and to say what's wrong with them. And if you don't have the right kind of training, and that's up to interpretation and varies by culture and all those things, and accessibility is very, very dangerous. The way the gatekeeping operates. All of that said,
I just have a sense of familiarity with the way they behave.
Yeah, and maybe if it's not on the spectrum, if it's not anything, maybe it could even just be like legitimately just a shy kid. Do you think that there is some sort of benefit to having people like you there that you're like, oh, I could recognize that, and maybe I could just make these environments a little bit less stifling for them?
I like to think so. Absolutely. I'm a little sad that I only get a certain amount of time with these students each day, and even now that was taken away, right? Because our school district has been distance learning for the past school year and a half. But when we were in person, I'd notice things as you do, being around them each week, and I'd go, this reminds me of myself in one way or another, and I try to just comment on something that I think would help them or just give them some encouragement, because school is also very scary and can be very discouraging.
Yeah, of course.
And also even the teachers as well. There can be just this like I understand more of all the stuff that teachers have to do on a daily basis, and it's a lot.
Some people, I'll just say it for you, should not be teachers. They don't have the constitution.
There is also that.
Their temperament, or they just plain out don't, like some of them seem to lack the sort of sympathy or even empathy, and really put themselves in those kids' places and be like, do you not remember how overwhelming even just walking into the building every day can be? Or sometimes are you not feeling that yourself, even as a grown human being?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll just give a quick example. The student, I think this was a second grade class, he came up to me and he was upset because the book he had picked last week was too difficult for him. But he insisted on getting it because he's a child, and he didn't do well on his reading test. And so he was very
Oh
upset.
man, that sucks.
And I'm sure he also got in trouble with his teacher as well, because it brought down his scores and whatnot. And so
we start them early. How productive can you be? And if you're not cutting it, that should correlate directly to your self-worth. Yeah.
yes, all numbers driven. Yes, you're right, even at that age. And so I was trying to help him, but then he just kept getting more upset and actually crying, and his teacher got mad at him, and he goes, "Stop crying." And I'm like, okay, so I can have to be careful with how I handle this, because I don't want to call the teacher, but I also don't want this kid to be upset over something that's not his fault and that is not that big of a deal. So I just said, okay, like that. I will help you. Let's just handle this. And so I got the book. I was helping other students, and then I went over to check on him, brought him some tissues, and I helped him pick out a book that was more his reading level and something that he wanted to read. And I always try to do that as well. I ask the students, well, what are you interested in? What do you like to learn about? Or
what just actually meet them where they are. Cool? Yes.
And sometimes it's a little difficult. I'm thinking maybe because they weren't asked that before, and so they're not really sure of that. But I mean, some of them are totally sure, and they're like, yeah, show me, I want to know how to build an airplane. And I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, how far are we going back? Wilbur, right, let's go and build an airplane. You know what I think it is? And I will give you just the most sincere compliment. I can tell you're somebody who's talked to those kids like they're individuals, and you meet them on their level and where they are. Because I know that's how you talk to each and every one of us in our groups, by actually saying like, oh, what are you interested in? Children are probably very seldom asked what they're interested in. They're mostly like having adults like tell them to shut up about what they're interested in. Like, go play, go do it, whatever. I don't want to actually hear about it. So I appreciate that you actually turn that and go, I'll ask you an open-ended question, which children also are not asked often enough. Like, what are your actual thoughts? Mm-hmm. And then you help them apply it and go, you can manifest. We're going to build you an airplane. And then next thing you know, you two are on the roof and we're all shouting, you get down. He only read one book. I think that would just be, I don't know why in my brain at the end of the story, you both accomplished building an airplane. I just have that. I have that faith in you.
Something I miss a lot is this semi-annual librarian conference for the district, where we all converge into a meeting room for the morning, and we just talk about library techniques and weeding and reshelving and book repairs.
Oh, it's
and
Comic
it's so
Con.
much fun.
It's Comic Con for librarian techs. I love it. It's so cool.
It's the best time.
Oh, I bet it's like summer camp, and you're all like, who's my convention crush? I know that's happening for sure.
I love it so much, and I miss it so much, just being in the room with all of these other librarians, and we get to talk about books for 3 hours. Like, yes, I'm getting paid for this.
Oh! Before I lose you, because I only ever I'm paying my guests for the hour. For that, I want to make sure we talk about vampires.
Okay.
Because I hear you. I just hear you talk about like Dracula and vampire stuff. And were you saying that you even write your own fiction around vampire stuff?
No, I did mention that. I think in our meeting last week, that was the icebreaker. So I can't even say it was a pandemic thing, or excuse me, a quarantine thing, right? Because this was kind of starting in January of last year, and it was just like, I don't know. At this point, I feel like I'm just where I'm meant to be. Like I said earlier, I've always been drawn to spooky things.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm excited to talk about this.
So like, that's just part of who I am. I'm always going to come back to this.
I think mine was
men with capes.
Yeah, I know. That's who I'm attracted to.
That's who I want to be. I own a cape now, so it's great. Life is great.
I got my first cape. Okay, my first cape. what a weird statement to say. I had a Renaissance version because I was still in girl mode, but I wanted to be like Merlin and not tell anybody. And so I told my grandma, like, I would like to voluntarily wear a dress, and so of course that happened. They're like, yes, let's do this. Most of the time it's pulling teeth to get ready to want to wear anything frilly, and so I got like this beautiful, and I made sure that it had like as little actual frill on it as possible. This was a cloak to be wearing around in the yard and stuff, just so I could go outside in it. I was like, this is an outside cloak, everybody, but I just wanted it to be more boyish.
I love that. Wow.
And it was like a green one that went down out to the ground. Oh my gosh, I wish I had a picture. I'll see if I can. I don't have many like childhood photos of me because it's with like family that I don't talk to. But long story short, very excited that you own a cloak. Is it more like a Dracula, like sort of like
I think so.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes,
no, please
it was.
This is a no disparaging zone. If you're being a hater right now, back off. I'm gonna put that out there.
Oh my gosh!
You're laughing with and not at. If you are laugh at her, I already don't like you. Get away from me.
Let me tell you, my significant other and our mutual good friend and I went out last November 1st, the day after Halloween. We had missed our friend, and so yeah, we dressed up. And when I say that, I mean I had my cape. My significant other had his devil horns, and our friend, they're always dressed to impress. And so we were hanging out. We got donuts. We went to Stater Brothers dressed like we were. I think I wore my fangs under my mask. It was just the greatest experience. And
Stater Brothers is a San Bernardino, which I lived in, and Yucca Valley has them. So that's how we know it's a San Bernardino. I think San Bernardino County specific grocery chain. And I always remember it being like not that you can tell the politics of a grocery store, but I imagine anybody who's rich enough to have a chain is probably on the more conservative side, especially in San Bernardino County. So, oh man, you would just go to Staters and you just go to the deli section and be like, give me some blood, please.
It was a very like fulfilling experience. And as our friend pointed out, we were feeding our inner child.
I feel like so much of like costume and cosplay and all of that stuff. I feel like that's like the especially for cishet people. Halloween's like one night a year they're allowed to get a little bit gayer.
But as I like to say, the scares are year round.
And that's why gays are obsessed with Halloween, because they're like, yeah, I keep it fun all the time. I'll get dressed up on a Tuesday and go to Stater Brothers. That's amazing. I love that so much. And I hope that you and I can dress up together sometime, because I bet we would have so much fun just going and freaking out people. We could go to Denny's.
I would love that. Yes. And to tie it back, I think last January, I just had this thought like, it'd be cool if like Dracula and Satan were dating.
Tell me what the gossip is between Dracula and Satan. What happened? Why did they break up?
Long story short,
no gory details. Yeah.
not to get into gory details, but Satan helped Dracula come to be. So
Satan is Satan the bottom or the top in this relationship, or are they verse? Is it or is one of them side? Are they ace? What's the deal?
Dracula thinks he's the top until he meets Satan.
That tracks. That old queen that wearing makeup and cloaks and hanging out with women he's not even attracted to. so amazing. And then what is Satan's gender expression, if you know it, and sexual orientation? How does he identify within the queer world? Is he top, bottom?
I just had this image of this like very tall figure with hair spilling down the shoulders and dark eyes, of course, because taking from everyone's favorite own fan fiction, the Bible.
because it's a reboot. It's fan fiction of the Zionists.
Well, I was just taking the idea that Lucifer was a fallen angel and he was the light bearer, basically, right? Just
yes.
Glowy, very like I interpret that to mean like truth seer, like he could see everything, but of course that like bit him in the ass because he could see what God was planning and he didn't agree with it, and so there was this war. Satan fell and became Satan, and then he has a plan out to get back at God, of course.
Yes.
Whole Dracula falls into
very big queer drama. I'll destroy the party if you don't let me come to it. Yes.
Oh, so and of course I haven't gotten all of this down. I've gotten the beginning
In the
of it, of
beginning, you
course.
got that far. Yes.
Yes, and I wrote it from the perspective of Vlad, because Vlad Tepes was the real Dracula, right?
Vlad Tepes, was that the name? That was the name of the Vlad the Impaler dude.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I should have done more. I got the years for the movies I'm going to talk about. But I forgot to look up any actual vampire history, and that's library hours, baby. That is library hours. I am not a nerd. I'm a dork. I will remember the movies, but then go, oh wait, an actual guy existed. I should have done research on him. So yeah. Oh my gosh. And before we switch to our fun game segment, how did Dracula and Satan get together and fall in love?
Vlad, because he's still Vlad when they meet. He's just wandering the countryside, being a cursed corpse. Ha! Say that with no context.
I've been there before. I've had those sort of like long spells where I haven't seen anybody in a while. Like, I'm a cursed corpse. I got to be cold to the touch. No one wants to touch me. Yeah. And so what happens? They meet.
So Satan has him brought to his lair and strikes up a bargain with him and says, hey, you and I both hate God for many different reasons. You want to make a deal with me, and it goes from there.
Okay, no, don't say anything more. I want you to send the link as soon as we're done. I'm gonna read it, and I'm like, oh, this is so sexy. Speaking of sexy, let's start for my big segment where we're talking, we're gossiping about Draculas. It doesn't have to be Dracula. If you think of any other ones while we go, I just kind of like jotted down mine in chronological order of like film chronological order, so I could be like, oh, okay, in case this like inspires like the next one. And you can just let me know if you don't know anything about it. I'll just give my little spiel of why I liked it. Did you? Because I also know that you are a film nerd. You did one time just like casually drop License to Drive, the Corey Haim film, and I was like,
I did. And let me tell you, I did that because I just knew it in my gut that you would know what I was talking about.
That's such a read. That's such a read. Oh, okay, never mind. License to Drive is a film. Sorry, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim. Again, one of those films that, like, if I tell you to go watch it, it might be like, you'd be like, what's going on? But for me, it was important. And not a Dracula movie, so get it out of the way. Anyway, have you seen the 1922 F.W. Murnau Nosferatu, one of the first, like, big baddies of the genre, German expressionist?
Ooh, no, I have not. But I did hear that Bram Stoker's wife was upset over its conception because it is very heavily influenced by the novel. But,
oh yeah, we say heavily influenced in that way that like they straight up stole ideas away from the novel, and the novel,
but didn't give him credit, didn't ask for rights or anything.
Yeah, because again, put this into perspective. This book was such a cultural shift for Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was one of the first things that like he's not quite the protagonist, you know, because we have that figure to like keep it, you know, Christian moral centered. But he was given a lot more sympathy as a character. You saw a lot more insight into his personality, even if it was like in those broad strokes melodrama ways, you know, gothic romance ways, and made women horny for Dracula and gay men and everybody, and so not, you know, so that was like 1897. In 1922, this film suddenly comes out from the German expressionism, just like the very no gory details, is literally instead of it being like supernatural, is like everything being realistic, hyper realistic with expressionism. It's like kind of like the Impressionists, where they just want you to feel something viscerally. So they don't worry about getting everything just exactly right. They use a lot of magic. They're just like whatever. I'm trying to get you to feel something. And Nosferatu took the Dracula character, maybe even more in the way that he was thought of at the time. He's still like that sort of hunchback, sort of like you know, sort of like not
very humanoid, more animal than man.
Yes. And so
figure.
when you hear about these women being enticed by them, it's even scarier because you're like, I'm not attracted to that. And that way, that like Brecht or the other people would be like, oh, it's okay. The alienation effect is why you are affected by this, instead of empathetic protagonists, or antagonist characters that we have today. Now, when you watch something, we want to know where everybody's coming from, and if we can't empathize, we think we're just like, oh, you shouldn't show that because I don't see myself in it. The expressionists do not give a shit. It's like David Lynch in Twin Peaks. He does not care if you don't understand what's going on.
Wow, I love that connection.
Yeah. And so right after that came out, the Stroker people were like, we need to get our stuff together. They got the Broadway production in 1924 with Bela Lugosi, who would then go on to play the film role for the original Dracula. Did you watch the Bela Lugosi Dracula?
I did. And
what are your thoughts?
My household was a VHS household for many years. Actually, we still have a working VHS player.
That's cool. I love that.
And one of the movies we had was Bela Lugosi's Dracula. And that would be one of our movies that we'd see for Halloween time, because my mom is a very seasonal woman.
Yeah.
And so I probably just internalized that, because, I mean, who wouldn't? He's so, I don't know what is about it.
He has
it's probably the cape.
But he also, Bela Lugosi was one of those characters. This is some fun like Broadway nerd stuff. He was one of the first like big actual stars from this show, because it was such a phenomenon, because like it was a scary play, and usually like they would keep it cute or political, but not just like straight up horror in ways that you didn't quite understand entirely. Bela Lugosi was so sexy, such a heartthrob, such a like an action star in that sort of way, that he would have his fans like mob him. These women would come and grab him on the street. I heard about this in that You Must Remember This podcast with Karina Longworth. It's she does like old Hollywood stories, and she'll go into the backtrack of the history of everything. And Bela Lugosi, he was just a heartthrob. So even if I think he was a bit older when he played the film version, there's still that sort of part of him that's just so magnetic in his eyes when he looks towards the camera. You're like, ooh,
yes, absolutely.
And they have that soft focus across his face, the way that they do usually with women characters. I'm like, yes, get it. This is so
I think everyone can have an experience with his performance on it. Yes.
Oh no, for sure. He was somebody who was able to, even with his thick accent, which I'll say is very relative to what you consider an accent, but for Hollywood standards, when they wanted you to have that transatlantic or that very Ohio sort of like way of saying everything, he was somebody who was able to go from Broadway. This was unheard of at the time, to go from Broadway and the silent era of film into talkies with his accent, and he was able to be like, no, actually the women, I mean, this is French, what the heck.
It's LeFou.
No, don't call me LeFou. That's because of my height. I'm 5'3". How dare you? And because I want to feed Gaston 3 dozen eggs. Yes.
Which is canon now.
But Lugosi could be like, no, women are gonna like the mystery and intrigue about like some far off aristocrat. It doesn't matter if they don't know what Transylvania or whatever actually sounds like. I sound like I'm from there to them in my mind. And he was able to use his accent as a selling point, the same way that Desi Arnaz was able to successfully do with Lucy. It'd be like, no, this is like, first of all, you're underserving a big audience segment by ignoring that they exist. So put me on TV. But he was able to do that for film. Okay, awesome. So of course, I'm going to jump all the way to 1992 now from 1924.
Wonderful.
With I brought him up earlier, and I know he's in trouble right now, but I will say, just in terms of what I watched a lot, and I'm still like working out how I feel about it, the 1992 film version Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not the TV show, which was also made by Joss Whedon, but the original one. Have you happened to seen this one before?
Yes. And
what do you think about it?
It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get that reaction. It's what I can explain why I like it, and then we can get completely off the topic because it has its limitations, is what I'll say.
I don't know. It doesn't. Something about it doesn't click. And I mean the Buffy for it is great, but it could be the writing is what I'm thinking of.
Joss Whedon is not my favorite writer, and I always I have to say it was probably the actors like serving the material well. Have you ever watched a movie that you're like, I know if they didn't get this star, this movie would be sucky.
Oh yes.
Christy Swanson, there we go, is the name of the actor who played Buffy, and then the bad guy, Rutger Hauer, Lothos.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Rutger Hauer, if you don't know, he is like known so well in like the spooky horror, right? Is that what he's primarily known for? I want to say
sci-fi.
Oh no, in sci-fi, yes,
Blade
of course.
Runner.
Yeah. Blade Runner. Oh well, Blade Runner's scary to me. So, and is Blade Runner? That's the one with the robots, right?
Yes, the replicants.
Yeah, the replicants, which is another. A lot of times, queer people are like, we're robots, we're monsters. I identify with all of them, especially as an autistic person. But back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Here are the things that I liked for it and that did not work for me, and totally understand if it's not someone's cup of tea. It kind of reminded me of. This is what I think happened. This is my conspiracy theory of how I think Joss Whedon conceived of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think Joss Whedon saw that Teen Witch was successful, even though it was a bad movie. Okay. Have you ever seen Teen Witch before?
No, but I know of it.
Yeah, it is not a good film, which was also conceived as a ripoff because it was capitalizing on the success of Teen Wolf, which was the Michael J. Fox story about, which is another trans storyline of a young man suddenly hitting puberty and becoming a little hairy wolf man. Teen Witch was an unsuccessful attempt at capitalizing on that, just terrible film. And then there was also a 1983 film called Valley Girl, which was a huge success in America. And it caused the Valley Girl craze across the nation, where suddenly people who were not from the Valley were speaking with an upspeak. And like everybody started going to malls more. That was really like the germ, in my opinion, in film history on what affects the culture, started the whole mall culture craze. And I think Joss Whedon, because I'll just say I didn't watch the show. I don't think, and I don't really like jive with his entire like perception of feminism. I think it's like really limited and sexist in its own ways. And I also know he's in trouble. So I know he's in trouble right now, so I can say it freely. What I liked was that it was a slightly more successful version of Teen Witch by way of a legitimate film, Valley Girl, and which was more actually subversive and actually showing like young teenage girls having agency and sexuality and stuff. Like it's not a perfect film by any means, but if you do want to see like a young Nicolas Cage, watch that. And I just love, and I think also I had a big crush on Luke Perry, so it could be that I just
okay
that I just Luke Perry was very much in his like I don't know if Beverly Hills 90210 had come out yet, but nobody played a virile young troubled man like Luke Perry did. Very what's his name? James Dean. He was like a James Dean sort of for Gen X and older millennial set. Wait, so tell me about that other one with the fingernails again.
Oh, that was Dracula 2000.
Yeah, tell me
what are Butler.
Now compared to the Lugosi one, what were the things that you liked about it versus like what was different about it besides the fingernails?
Well, so I'm a little more biased towards this one because first of all, this was a movie that I saw when I would come home from school, and I'm pretty sure this was when I was allowed to ride the bus. And so my parents trusted me enough where I'd come home after getting dropped off by the bus, and I'd be alone because both of them would be working.
Yeah.
I'd be alone for a number of hours.
Same deal with me sometimes. Yeah, it's just what happens when you're a latchkey kid. Yeah.
But being an undiagnosed ADHD little queer that I was, I did not start homework, of course.
No. You got more important business. Same
I would
deal.
find whatever food there was in the house available, and I would watch TV, and I would watch, of course, things that I wouldn't normally see while my parents were home. And I call this my after school special because I saw a lot of stuff.
Oh, also, yeah. I know what you mean.
Same time, I found this TV show, Moonlight, which was about an LA vampire detective.
Whoa, Moonlight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it only got one season, though.
Do you remember who stars in it? Hold on, let me see if I can look it up.
It's very 2000s looking with his like longish curly hair and trench coat.
Alex O'Loughlin, am I thinking?
Yes.
In the Wikipedia synopsis, in this eerie mystery series, private investigator Mick St. John is a charismatic, resourceful, and undead person. Oh yeah, okay. So tell me what you liked about this show.
Picture young middle school Ari, after school special, snacks in hand, watching stuff that I'm not supposed to be watching. And so going back to Dracula 2000, I was also biased at the time because I think my first hyperfixation was Phantom of the Opera, the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical.
Okay, so you're
anything,
like men in
anything
tuxedos
relating to that, yes, I had to experience. And Gerard Butler starred in the 2004 film adaptation. And so I was also interested in anything he had to do. And so when I found out he was Dracula, another spooky guy in a cape, I was so on board.
You just exploded, I'm sure.
I did. And I think that's also why I felt so so encouraged to stop biting my nails, because I wanted to be like Gerard Butler with
that's so amazing. I love that.
Cape and long spooky nails. And funnily enough, I think the character that Alex O'Loughlin plays in this TV show Moonlight looks a lot like Gerard Butler's Dracula. So there was also a connection there. I mean, you know, basic looking white guys with long curly hair and dark clothes. Yeah.
You can just imprint on them because they are so nondescript that like, you know, and when it's all that's being given to you as options as media representation, of course, you just take what you can get. Okay, I know exactly what you mean by early 2000s visuals, because, okay, and I'm saying this just off of the feeling of the way it was shot, not like content or even like tone or anything. It kind of gives me that early Doctor Who, like the first few seasons vibe, where everybody, it's like very Stark's blues, like dark navy blues were very important to the early 2000s for like anything that was like sci-fi or horror. They would just they loved it. And then like later they found the orange and the gradient and they went, ooh, we are so complex with color correction now. And then you also have like these bright neon greens because they loved I love lighting design in film and color design especially, and I can see that this uses very good Stark use of color imagery. I can see like, oh, I can tell this guy in a red shirt is bad. I can see a lot of red coming up as a motif. So yeah, blues and reds. Oh gosh, yeah, no wonder for a little kid who can get like overstimulated with visuals. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Oh yeah, and so then at some point that did become a very big part of my after school special, where I would, along with my, you know, bowl of chips or something, I would get I started asking my mom to buy cranberry juice for obvious reasons.
Yes,
and so I'd pour it in a glass goblet, and I would even put more drops of red food coloring, and I would just look at myself in the mirror sipping my cranberry juice.
Okay. All right. This is not a vampire movie, so please let me know that you forgive me for bringing it up. But I'll tell you my version of this, of my after school special that I did. That is that level of like, oh my goodness. Have you seen The Craft? The also from like that early 90s version. Yes. It's about the 14 witches who get their powers after they come into, they harness their teen girl sensuality and agency. And Fairuza Balk is just like a mad woman who I was like, oh, that one's me. That was when I was a little girl. I was very much like rage, and I wanted, me and my friend Brandy, we wanted to, we would watch that film in our own after school special. Of course, my Christian grandparents did not know I was watching any of this. My Southern Baptist,
even better.
My Southern Baptist, San Bernardino, Stater Brothers shopping grandparents were, that euphemism. They did not know. Me and Brandy, we would pretend that we were witches ourselves while we would watch it, and we would try to do the ceremony with them. So we would like go to like Spencer's Gifts or whatever, where we could find a chalice or what, you know, we tracked down like spell books with like fairies on the cover. That was like super, and we would go on the internet and we would Google witch spells. Just which, like, who knows what? Because I want to say this was like 1998, 1999. So who even knows what on Internet Explorer was coming up for us when we went to Jeeves on Ask Jeeves? Because it wasn't the Google supremacy. It is now. And we would be like, hey, Jeeves, what's a witch spell? And he'd be like, I'm a butler. Let me lead you to the spells. And then some text file just telling us like things to buy. And I'm just like, oh my God, thank goodness we did not poison ourselves just following the blind advice of strangers online. And I would invariably get too scared to drink the actual potion. because I was a neurotic kid. My friend Brandy, she was a kid who was like, I'm smoking weed at 13. I don't care. I would get out my cloak, my outside cloak, wear it indoors, special occasion.
Amazing.
I wish I still had that cloak. I'm sad. It probably doesn't fit me. That was a child's cloak. Why am I sad that I lost a child's cloak? Okay, now I'm sure this is one that's very near and dear to your heart. So please try not to fan out too hard over it. 2008, around the time that we're getting into the golden age of horror again, we're starting to see all these beautiful influences from yesteryear. But, tell me about 2008's Twilight. The look on your face, you just felt, you're like, how do I say this politely? Just kidding. No, who cares about that crap? Sorry if you like it. I should be less value judgment-y, but it's a weird pedophilia story that
it is.
But I know he can't help it that he was still in high school and he was over 100. That just happens sometimes. He's also a super genius and rich, and he just happens to have hung out there. That happens to guys that age. Now I'm just getting into my own dating history, and I don't want to go there.
Okay.
No. All kidding aside, did you like Twilight? Because I actually have another title that came out the same year, and I just wanted to fake you out a little bit.
I did at the time, because I was a young impressionable middle schooler
who's into spooky stuff, and oh my goodness, and then Kristen Stewart's giving off some sort of queer vibe with her. She's like, I don't even know if I want to talk to you. Very, very young queer girl who may or may not be interested in men later, but definitely turned out seems to be less interested in Kristen's case.
I do have more like I don't know. It was less like looking back now. It was less like the text itself, but more of just like the energy that it was feeding me, like my after school specials. And there was this person at middle school. I don't want to put any labels. I don't know,
oh no, of course
not really in contact, or how she identified then or now, but we'll just say that she was a tomboy.
Okay, we'll put it that way, on the femme to butch scale, maybe leaning a little bit off of center and to the butch side, we'll say.
Yes, and she was tall, dark hair, blue eyes. So looking back, I definitely had a crush on her. And I don't know what her thing was. Well, I kind of do. She was like, oh yeah, when I was little, I burned Barbies. And I'm like, whoa, you're so dangerous.
Yeah, riot girl.
And so
rebel.
She would wear vampire fangs to school sometimes. And I'm like,
so
okay.
Cool, yes.
So, like, here's a vampire. And then, I don't know, at one point, werewolves were introduced to my young mind, but they're still there. Total trans culture, just wanting to shapeshift.
That's why meanwhile, same age, I was into Sailor Moon. That's why I wear dresses now. It's like I'm like, and that's why I'm still too earnest to function, and just like, love it. Everybody should be loving each other. Please stop. But I'm also a crybaby.
Oh, no.
You're still in your spookiness, and I'm still in my Sailor Moon vibes. Both big trans culture. So God bless.
Yes, and funnily, there it is again. Funnily enough, at the time, I didn't want to be a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a werewolf, and it's only now that I'm in this past year that I've been having fun masquerading as 80s Dracula, which is another another creation of mine.
Can I tell you that I think I'm as obsessed with vampires because all the same things. I would watch all of these vampire movies. I finally put together that I just related to them a lot. Can I tell you the reasons why
do.
like Letterman, 10 reasons why I relate to vampires. Number one, I have a garlic sensitivity. I cannot. I will get terribly sick if I eat it. Very on the nose, but also for the trans reasons, mirrors and I do not have a very good relationship.
I knew that was going to be another option.
Number two, the big one, I will not go to your house unless I'm specifically invited. I'm too socially awkward to just invite myself over places. So I would often be the kid who was like being left out of stuff.
Yes, please tell me what to do.
Yeah, so invite me into your house by name if possible. Number three, if you stake me through the heart, I'll die.
There you go.
That was one that when I was a kid, I'd always get so mad. I was like, that you can kill almost anything. That doesn't make you an immortal monster otherwise. That's like saying like the way that you kill a mummy is you put a pillow over its face while it's sleeping. You know what I mean?
Oh, if only someone had told Brendan Fraser sooner.
Just gently, like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That guy was a mummy secretly. They don't know that part about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
So
yeah, so you
oh my gosh.
Oh, do you think also, going back to you feeling like you are a werewolf but you identify also with vampires, do you think that it's possible for there to be a werewolf vampire?
Yes.
You said that so definitively, like, here are the texts.
Well, more in a nerdy. I have a nerdy answer for this because
yes, give me the nerdy
last year
answer.
I downloaded this audiobook app, LibriVox, and
awesome.
I was having the Dracula novel read to me, and so then I was just flipping through stuff looking for some content to inspire me, and it's implied that Dracula can shapeshift into different things, not just a bat. And so he also appears as a wolf. Whoa. And when I found that out last year, I'm like, oh, well, there I go. I can be whatever I want. So that's my nerdy answer.
You're the werewolf. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And then the last two that I can remember that were very important to me was the 94 Interview with the Vampire with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and Kirsten Dunst. I think I identify with Kirsten Dunst as being like one of those wise beyond your years kids who's just frustrated by it and overwhelmed instead. Because basically in that movie, she's like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt are these like two fully adult men who make this little girl into a vampire, and then they have the conflict of like her figuring out that she can know that she's like, oh, I am actually mortal, and like figuring out what that means with an adult brain still in a child's body. Did you watch that one?
I did, and I don't know if that was an after school special or not, but I mean, in later years, like I've continued the tradition of the after school special where now I'll just wait for my parents to go to bed because they go to bed early, and so I'll just stay up and watch things that they wouldn't approve of. So
I did that, but I just started doing it when I was a kid, so I had insomnia. So I was just watching way too much stuff all the time. And what did you think of Interview with the Vampire? Just like another trigger warning, this one was made by Anne Rice. She made a whole like series of vampire books, but she is a little bit, I'll say, out there is the euphemism I'll use, and might also be conservative and reactionary in her own ways. So tread lightly in all of the themes, because it gets like, it's homoerotic, but also like very sexual and gratuitous violence. But you find that in any vampire stuff. I don't know why I'm saying that so much.
It's rather chaotic, isn't it? It's just, it's all over the place. I think the movie is trying to be a lot of different things at once.
Because Anne Rice, her books are so crammed full of information that like there was no way, especially at that time, like people were not seeing 3-hour movies. So they would try to like cram it all in. And you said chaotic, right? It would be so fast paced that you're like, wait, who is that person? Do they matter? Are they coming back?
Yeah. And so I think overall it has a more comical feel to it, absurd. Where, like,
I would say
like there's high drama, and Tom Cruise is just, I don't know, I'm actually like he does it very well. I don't know what juice he drank for that film, but
it's melodrama. It's doing the 1920s Bela Lugosi, but in the 90s when people didn't have the patience for it anymore, for the melodrama of it all. And so I think you're so right that you're still like, oh, you're sexy, but I don't think this is a good movie. This is like definitely one of those like really good bad movies that you put on with your friends and you're like, let's make fun of the bad stuff and get horny at the stuff that you get horny at, and that's, we call it what it is.
Yes, I love it.
And then the most recent one that I got really into, both the movie and the TV show, is the 2014 Taika Waititi, What We Do in the Shadows. Are you into that movie or the show?
I started watching the show with my dad at some point, maybe last year, and we both love it. That's definitely our humor.
What character do you like the most? Like, who's your favorite?
Oh, it's been a while. It's funny. So like we can't really watch it while my mom's here because we don't think she'd appreciate like the dark
Oh yeah, okay, because I
themes
will.
and the humor. So
I'll give a too long didn't read to your mom and to anyone else. It's basically a mockumentary, like fake documentary, comedy horror series about these. I think it's like 2 or 3 vampires, and 2 of them are like more historical ones. Oh wait, no, Nosferatu sort of like kind of character lives there too, and he's like an ancient one. And it's these different vampires from different parts of history, and that's where the sort of like sitcom-y, like they're like perfect strangers. They don't get along, but like in that really dark, twisted way of they're all human killing machines. And then also through the dry New Zealand, very British sensibility of Taika Waititi, and it's just a really great character actory sort of thing. I think one of the dudes, Jermaine Clement, is just fucking amazing in that role. Super cute. I have a crush on him in that role, even though he's really gross sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I only preface that because I haven't got to finish it, and I showed my partner that, and he finished it within like a week, and I'm like, okay, so I should just watch it. But from what I've seen, I've only seen some episodes from the first season. I think I really like Nandor because honestly,
which one's Nandor again?
He's I think he's like anointed himself the head of the household.
Oh yes, I know. The kind of prissier one.
yes,
Very
because of the first episode, and he's like, I got a letter from super spooky dude back home. Let's go to the lounge to read the letter, and they're like, just open the letter. He's like, no, it's just a formality, and they're like, you could have read it by now. He's like, it's just a formality. Let's go to the lounge. And like, if I can see myself like just doing that, like no, I have to do it my way, and this is why I have a reading room to read, and so we're going in there, and
we need to have neurotic type A vampires represented on TV, and you're very right about that. I love that you get to see yourself in that character. Do you know who I love? And it's very adjacent. Matt Berry, I know from. Did you ever watch Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
No, I did not.
Okay, this is I'll send you a link to the first thing, because I think you're gonna love it, and you send me your fan fiction, and we have that exchange.
Yes.
Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is also a mockumentary, but it's also a fictionalized thing. It's a show within a show. Okay. Where Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is a sort of retrospective of like the douchiest version of like a Stephen King guy who was a big, but he got washed up. Like if he stopped being relevant at some point. And so they set it up that this guy, because literally the BBC ran out of content, they decided to bring back this guy's show. And he was the only one who still owned copies that he had in his basement. His name is Garth Marenghi. And he's like this very self-obsessed, like just icky, like that sort of like ew, like that you hope that all of your heroes don't turn out to be when you learn more about them. And he shows you his old show called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. It's a parody of old science fiction and horror shows from the 80s and 90s. So it has that very like synthy soundtrack, and Matt Berry, he plays the sexy doctor at the hospital. And all of the actors are basically, they went in and they said all their lines and stuff, super surreal, very art house, like what am I even seeing? Am I on an acid trip sort of stuff? And then they had all of the actors go in and redub over themselves. So it gives that sort of like even more dimensions of it being a bad old movie or bad old show. And that's all I'll say. If you really like weird, messed up, spooky stuff, and you also are like, oh, but I also like British sensibilities of things. I like British comedy or this stuff, like the New Zealand stuff and what we do in the shadows. I think that it will hit the right balance. And I would be very happy to hear your thoughts about it, because I'm obsessed. It's my favorite. It's my favorite sitcom of all time. Is Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah. So
like you just pressed a bunch of buttons in my brain.
Yeah.
They're all firing off.
I want if you do listen, and to any listeners, please also tell me and unless you have any other pressing vampire titles, because those were the major ones for me. Were there any other like other vampire things that you're like, oh, if you're into vampires, you got to get on this?
Yes. 3 words that changed my life last year: Dracula the musical.
What? These three words are very well met. Okay, tell me again. No major spoilers, but tell me about Dracula the musical. If somebody is not is a casual fake gamer girl version of Dracula fan.
So it was composed by Frank Wildhorn, who has also composed Jekyll and Hyde.
I've heard of that one. That one was a really fun score. Yeah.
He just did The Man Who Laughs, which premiered in South Korea.
South Korea, especially if it's playing to that audience and what they want. South Korean horror is woohoo, honey. Mm-hmm. It's up there with Japanese horror and the stuff that like gets under my skin the most. And I love all different countries of horror. Swedish horror. The 2008 movie that I was going to mention alongside Twilight was Let the Right One In, but we don't have time for that. Yeah.
I saw the beginning of that, but I fell asleep because it was that time of night, and I think the sound, whoever was in charge of sound was
all these Aryan white vampires. Who gives a shit? Yeah, I understand.
It was very quiet. I was comfortable, and I just fell asleep.
It's Let the Quiet One In. I understand. No, I love it. I understand it's not for everybody. Just like Twilight did not speak to me. We were going in different directions with vampires in 2008. But okay, did you say Dracula the musical?
Dracula the musical. So
yes.
it premiered in La Jolla, California, in 2001, I believe.
Is it like a basic Dracula storyline, or is there anything like significantly different to it that people would want to know about without spoiling anything?
So I think it's just basically the continuation of this very romanticized and simplified interpretation of Bram Stoker's novel.
Yeah.
And so of course
that'll happen in musicals. Yeah.
Yeah. So drawing from what was already happening with the Bela Lugosi interpretation, and then also like Anne Rice's novel. So yeah, it's very, I don't know, like it does have that like main love arc and reincarnation of sorts and second chances and whatnot.
I'm gonna guess for the composition of it, because I'm a music. I went to a musical theater school. A lot of people. I'm not necessarily a Broadway star myself, but I have a big background. I'm going to guess, especially for the time period, did it have a lot of heavy hard rock, like electric guitars and like thrashing drums? Yes, I knew it. Yes. Oh gosh, yeah, just like the Bloody Andrew Jackson and Spring Awakening was the original German version. That one they still don't do as much because that one's actually hardcore. Again, it's oversimplified musical. So is it the music that really like that evokes back to a lot of horror movies, especially contemporarily? They'll use like metal and really thrash and let you have that emotional angsty energy that the Bela Lugosi violins sometimes could hit you or not.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right, and so it also adds this other side to the story, to the character, where we have action happening on the stage in the music. It's interesting though, because so it went on to the Broadway stage in I think the mid 2000s, somewhat successfully. There was some harsh criticism. They rewrote some of the music and added a song here or there.
Yeah, that'll happen a lot. Like because Broadway and musical theater and theater in general, live theater, it's now such a niche thing. Just, not to because like I said, I'm a big theater fan. Live theater is my main background, and my producing. This is like my first time producing something for the internet, where I'm like, this is going to exist forever. It's not ephemeral. Oh no, it's not something like, it doesn't dominate pop culture the way it used to. We don't get our pop music from Broadway the way we used to get all of our music from it. When the critics speak back, and this is why people like, Stephen Sondheim end up, writing Sweeney Todd, which I feel is like an allegory about feeling, traumatized by the creative process. Oh yeah, I can go into that in another series probably. I don't want to keep you here all night, but
I would listen to that.
Reed's weird musical theater conspiracy theories. Yes, I think that like you will live or die by your reviews and your early runs of things. And so I can understand if do you think that the product that the most recent version of it, do you think that like it really took the notes well and does stuff successfully, or is it still that you're like, if you're into vampires, you're gonna be into this, baby.
Well, I think the first revision, because there's more than one, was very very much for Broadway, to give it a bigger sound and just more songs to get you into the story and to just set up a lot of what was going to happen, which, yeah, I understand. And so I understand where the critics were coming from. But there was a second revision in the 2010s when this production from Vienna decided to put on their version of it, and there were even more rewrites done. I think about 5 songs were added, particularly It's Over, which was specifically written for the actors who were playing Van Helsing and Dracula.
And why do you think that they hadn't been given that sort of like iconic Broadway show-stopping number, and they just really needed to like drive that home of like, here are the dudes, and this is the song that you're going to be telling everyone to listen to? Or what do you think it was that they specifically like, we got to add this song to save the show?
I think it was what the show was missing. And I also recently discovered Elizabeth, Das Musical, which was, I think, put on by the same production company from Vienna. What's his name? I don't know how to pronounce it because it's in German.
Oh, no.
Kroger.
Austrians make the craziest horror, like that Funny Games. That's an Austrian film. Oh, gosh. Okay, say no more. This Uwe Kroger,
Yes.
Kroger guy, he'll know for sure.
and so I found him. He originated the role of Death, I believe, Der Todd, in Elizabeth Das Musical when he was like 27, 28. So...
And what's that one about?
Now,
I don't know that one at all.
Oh, that was about
Bathory?
Empress Cece. She was Viennese Empress.
Oh, is that the one that like she was killing people and they had to put her in a tomb at the end? Am I thinking of the right Empress?
I don't remember.
Hold on.
I went to her house though. Fun fact.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. No, like she had like just one of those like crazy, tragic family histories going on. Okay.
Yes. And so they made a musical about her life. Yeah. And so knowing that now about Kroger, I can totally understand why someone would want to write a song specifically for him. And they just, the song, I think it makes the second act of the show. And I will say, though, the South Korean production company who have been showcasing Dracula the musical for, I don't know, since 2014, they love it. And they just did it. They finished it last year. They're doing it again this summer. They perfected It's Over.
Okay.
They have their set production. They have this rotating stage, but it's like a castle. They made an entire castle. All
right, no more spoilers. Okay, so here's everybody's homework now, because I'm gonna read the fan fiction. You're gonna watch Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and now we're all going to go and watch the South Korean version. We'll figure out a way to go to South Korea, or if there's a film version, and I can find a link to any resources, I'm gonna make sure that I link to that, because that sounds way up my alley. So I would very much to like to learn about that, and just like learning that there's a whole like subsection of South Korean drama and musicals I got to go figure out how to get access to makes me, I want to say again, I know I brought you on here to talk about your work with children, but I know people only want to talk about their day job for so long. They want to talk about stuff that's also fun. So thank you for indulging me on both counts there. You've been such an amazing guest.
This has been so much fun. And whenever you want to talk about books or spooky things, just let me know.
Oh yeah, general invite to the audience and to you on both counts.
I will say that I don't think I ever answered this. Books that I was interested in and growing up was definitely things like Goosebumps and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh my gosh, that made me forget when I was talking about Nosferatu, the fact that his name was F.W. Murnau. I was like, oh yeah, like R.L. Stein. I wonder if that's where that guy got the name for that convention on his name. Because R.L. Stein, if you are like Generation Alpha or some age of children that scares me. Yeah, Goosebumps was such a phenomenon. So yes, Goosebumps I also hardly endorse because it's horror for children that doesn't talk down to them and also is not too much. And for the case of us
Yes.
sensitive children who don't necessarily want gore.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm happy to say that the kids are still interested in these series, which warms my heart so much. I've been reading my copies to them this past year. The Goosebumps are always checked out whenever they visit.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was able to order copies of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark for our library last year, and I didn't know it, but it was just in time for the movie as well, Guillermo del Toro's movie. And so
a master of horror. I love his work so much.
Yeah, so it's great being able to see the students excited about reading, which a lot of them are, and they're reading the stuff that I was interested in.
Yes, thank you for reading that to these kids and for recommending it to remind our parents that you need to go and set up the little spooky kids who are going to dress up like Dracula and go to the grocery store, and I will be in my prom dress. And in that case, have them read I don't know, Babysitter's Club. That's what I was reading. Not as much of a spookiness, unless you are just like the horror of puberty gets to you, then maybe it might appeal.
Maybe too scary.
Maybe too scary. I want you all to be able to sleep tonight, so I'm gonna leave it there. And thank you so much again for being on this show. I have loved having you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
And that was my interview with Ari. Makes me happy to listen back to that conversation, to give myself the reminder that I do have connection, sympathy, and camaraderie in this chaotic universe full of apathy. Can you tell that December is not the best month for me? If you feel that strain from the universe, please know that you are cared for by me. Even if we have that limited, one-sided parasocial relationship, know that I'm thinking about you too. I worry for you. Again, thank you for being patient with me as I work through my own obstacles in life. Anyone who's been following me the last couple of years knows that I'm doing a lot better than I was. I feel so self-conscious when I fall short of my goals, but whatever, let's keep going. LNZ. I will have another episode of Library Hours out for you as soon as possible, so keep an ear out for that. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the people on Patreon who've been supporting me through 2020. Thank you again to Allison Malden, Nina Vuoso, Ryan Suffrage, Christian Dobbins, Jack Juris, Yoshi, Michael Chow, Brian Guffey, Molly Becker, Jay Frosting, Hunty, Rachel Resnick, and Michael Bilo. You guys rule. All right, that's it from me for now. Until next time, listener, do me a huge favor. Take good care of yourself. You deserve it. Okay. Happy New Year's.